I think this will be day 3 of making guards, and it's a kind of miserable day. So I'm out in Big Shed with the door shut. I opened the door for literally 2 minutes to move that sheet of steel out from behind the motorbike, and this bloody bird jumped in. So I don't know what it is with birds this week, but there's now a blackbird jumping around in here. He doesn't seem particularly bothered. He just can't figure out how to get outside. Oh, there he goes. He just came in. I was literally chasing him around, trying to get him out the door. Looks like he's finally gone. Didn't seem particularly worried. He had a good jump around looking at the cars. So let's shut the door. No idea what happened to that other bird. Maybe I should attach the GoPro to a big stick and see if he's up on top of that lamp up there. Not sure. But I'm gonna have another attempt at these guards. I could reuse that top piece actually if I grind all those welds off, those tacks. So I may do that just because I know that top piece is the right shape, and it'll save a little bit of steel. But I'm going to make new sides. I'm going to do one and then roll the edge and then check the diameter and see if it's what I need it to be. I think it's probably going to be the safest way to do this. Let's see if we can find this bird. It's going to be a bit tricky. No idea if the bird's up there yet. I need to check the footage, but I realized GoPro on a big stick is a good way to get a top-down view of the car. Cut out a new side blank. If we compare it to the old one, you can see how much difference the radius is. Quite a bit. So front guards I'm trying to get down to about 3 inches above the wheel, which is more than enough travel, because there's only about an inch of travel, inch and a half of travel on the front suspension. So I've made this one quite a bit tighter, and instead of drilling holes through my piece of steel, I modified one of these magnetic brackets, little hooks. So now I've got a magnetic pivot for my compass thing. But what I wanted to do is measure this before I start, and we can see how much the shape changes. So it's 30.5 inches at the moment. That's not the radius because this isn't 180, but what did I just say? 30.5, 31.5? Or just forgetting. Measure it twice. 30.5. So what I'll do is I'm going to pre-shrink the edge before I curl it. I think if I do 3 or 4 passes, that should be about right. And then we'll put it through the bead roller and see how much it changes that shape. It's really quite interesting how much difference the shrinking of one edge makes. So I've done 3 passes along that edge, and it has altered the curvature. So we were previously at 30.5, and now we're at 30 and between 3/4 and 31. So that's made about 3/8 difference, I guess. So yeah, I didn't quite expect that. But I guess, yeah, if you're shrinking this in, it's going to pull this out. But it's really interesting how much of a difference it makes, because when you're shrinking this, it doesn't seem like you're doing much. Sometimes when you're shrinking and you really put some pressure on it, you can see the metal move, and you can on this if you go right on the edge. You will see this move. But now that that's been pre-shrunk a bit, and it's obviously shrunk because the dimensions have changed, I'll put it through the bead roller and see how much difference that makes. Now I think we're getting somewhere. So I've rolled the edge, and what I noticed this time is if I pre-shrink it, when I roll the edge, this doesn't go all wobbly, which means you can see a few little wobbles in it, which means it isn't quite shrunk enough. But definitely pre-shrinking it means going through the bead roller keeps everything more flat. And you can see, obviously we've lost a little tiny bit because this is now curving, it's not flat. So that's shrunk back down a little bit. So this now, I may have made it too small. Front wheels are probably okay, but if we look at that, that's almost the diameter of the tire. So this is actually pretty much right now, I think, because I want it 3 inches. I need to see if there's a way I can re-blacken the markings on this steel rule. It's a really nice one, nice imperial one. J. Raybone and Sons, Birmingham, made in England. Must be a way I can re-darken the markings, but because it's hard to see. So that's about 2 inches, but that needs to go about 1/2 inch above the tire to be round, and then that curvature to the top piece adds another 1/2 inch, so that gives me my 3 inches. So that's pretty much perfect. So that was 3 passes. The first pass is quite deep, about 1/2 inch in, and then 1/4 inch for the next 2. Put it through the bead roller. It doesn't warp, which is cool. and then I'll make a second one of those. And I am reusing the first middle piece I made because these were just tack welded. It's easy enough to put a slicing disc through the tacks. It doesn't do too much damage to the edges. It's all going to be re-welded anyway. And I know this is kind of the right shape, but I might need to adjust this so that it fits that a bit better. And to do that, how's the best way to do that? Probably a couple more shrinks. No, I should just be able to bend it. I think there should be enough. There's enough tightening of the curve in that I can get that radius to tighten up. I may put it through the wheel just down the middle, and that'll help pull it around, and then get it pretty close to this, and then we can weld that on. But I need to make a second one of those now. Just finished tack welding this. I must be getting better at this because the tack welding went so much better. Not the actual welding itself, that's dead easy, but the amount of manipulation I had to do to get the edges to line up was way less. So I think I've got it right now with how many passes of shrinking I need to do on the edge, and how much curve to put on it. So this pretty much just lined up. I did need to use the hammer and dolly in a couple of places, but that's not too bad. I just noticed I've cut my two sides different lengths, but that's okay because this is where the front gets trimmed around. But let's try it. I'm sure it's not hot on the wheel. Oh yeah, that's getting much better. It's sitting too far forward, obviously, because I need a block behind the back to stand it up at the back for where the front is, but the front is nearly horizontal with that little tiny kick, but that looks far better. And if I can find my hard to read straight edge, let's see. Yeah, that's 3 inches. So that's about right. So that dropped from, I think I ended up, I was at like 5 inches before. That's dropped it down to 3. So I know at the back I need a little bit more clearance. I think I might be able to get away with 3, but I may need to make the side pieces on the back a little bit bigger. So I'm going to prop this up on a piece of wood so it's sitting in the almost right position. It's a little hard to picture, but that's more or less how that's going to go. You don't want it too low down here. There needs to be room for this. It's going to be the wide edge, of course, and the front will be trimmed round. I did make a cardboard template for that, but the width looks right. It's got a bit of a twist in it. It's got enough crown in it. Yeah, I think that'll look really good once it's actually all nicely welded up and hammered and sanded smooth and wide. Yeah, that's definitely much better. Yeah, it's amazing how much difference. I'm going to feel bad saying this now, a couple of inches makes, but it really does. It is worth taking the time to get this right, I think. And I really like how that follows the wheel profile. I think it can look a bit odd if the guards don't match the radius of the circumference, I guess, of the wheels. There is a car that's like that. I can't remember. There's a vintage car that the guards are a completely different shape, and it just always looks kind of wrong to me. The interesting thing is, I wonder if I must have made this mistake on the Austin 7 as well, and just not noticed. Because I did the guards in the same way, although the Austin 7 has much much deeper sides. What will I make that out of? Those are solid. I'm not even sure what these are made from now. The front. Yeah, I never actually went back and hammered these smooth. So, and these guards are wider. I probably should have looked up my own film about how I did this, but yeah, wide edge. You can see there, it's that line from the bead roller. And, yeah, you need a little bit of extra clearance because of the bolts. Yeah, and like I say, 3 inches clearance there should be enough, because if you look at the amount of suspension travel on the front of one of these, it isn't a lot, and that is exactly right. That's how they are. You can see we've got about 1.5 inches travel. I guess theoretically it can go higher than that. If one wheel goes up and the other one goes down, it can tilt further than that a little bit. But I'm also going to be adding bump stops in here, so that'll really limit the suspension travel there, so there's no way those are going to hit the guards. The back's a little bit more tricky because it's a underslung chassis, overslung axle. I don't think we can even see, it's a bit dark. But this is the axle, the chassis down there. So that means there's a loop, there's a strap there, which is your bump stop. So at the rear, it's a bit hard to measure. It's about 3 inches at the rear. So I think I want a little bit more clearance on the rear guards. So maybe those do need to be 4 inches above. It's a bit tricky. Now looking at the pictures, yeah, I'd say, yeah, you can see in these pictures there's more clearance at the rear. The front's very close. So this one, it's a bit hard to tell on this one. Spiders everywhere. Yeah, I think these look equal, but they're very close. It started raining, and I've got dogs in here with me, which means I can't do the welding I need to do just at the moment, so I don't want to blind them. But it's been a long time since I played a CD. For a second I was trying to figure out how you play the second side, which shows how out of date I'm getting. But, I'm ready to weld up the second front guard. Again, this has gone much better, much easier second time round. And now that I know how to do it, I'm getting much more consistent results. I did realize I'd cut off the end of my measuring stick, which means I can't make the rear guard bigger. I'll need to make a new stick, but I'll use the stick as my template for if I ever have to make more. So I'll mark that up and put it aside. And head gardener actually had a good idea about how to fix the vent up there. I know we were both shocked by that as well. She typically lacks what I call mechanical empathy. The other day dinner was 2 hours late because she managed to turn on the wrong power switch to the crock pot on the power point on the wall, so dinner was a bit late. But her idea was use a piece of chicken wire up there and hold it in place with magnets, which means what I can do is, if I get powerful enough magnets, I can hot glue them to the corners of a piece of wire, piece of mesh, and just use a big long stick to attach it up there. I don't have to climb up there at all. So I think that's what I'll do. I will order some decent solid magnets and use those. Milo is licking the concrete. There's something tasty in there, Milo. So I'm just waiting till head gardener's back from the shops, and she'll take the dogs and I can finish welding that up. And that might be all I can do today because my hands are knackered. It's quite hard work, and I think what I might do is look in the sales, because of course everyone has sales for New Year's, and maybe buy one of the foot stands for the shrinker stretcher. If you're just doing a couple of little bits and pieces, it's not too bad. But having to do all of these edges 3 times each by hand, it's actually hard work, especially on the top pieces, because they're quite heavy to hold, because you've only got one hand to hold everything. So you sort of end up precariously balancing while trying to shrink this down. So I'll see, maybe I can get on sale one of the foot stands that gives you both hands free, and it means you can put a bit more pressure on things. But no, that's coming out well now. I should put that guard up on the rear wheel at that 3-inch height and see if that would actually give me enough clearance. If you can see past the gourds, I do like how that looks at 3 inches there. You have to remember as well, you'll lose a little bit of height on the inside, because right at the top here there'll be a strap inside there, probably 1/4 inch thick steel, which is the guard stay. So you do lose that little bit of extra. Hello, Zelda. So do I go up an extra 1/2 inch on that? Possibly. The other thing to remember is this is with the suspension unloaded. So if you've got people in the car, it's going to be hard to see, of course, but you can see if I stand in the car, it barely moves. You have to start bouncing up and down on it to really get any movement out of it. Of course, that's exaggerated when you're on the road. If you had a pothole, that could move quite a bit, but the suspension on this is very stiff, and that's by design. That's how lots of pre-war cars were, very, very stiff springs, because they expected the chassis to be flexible. But yeah, I'm really pleased with the width of those now. I'm really pleased with the curvature on the top. They are basically flat guards without being flat, and the rears will be a little bit more off a full curve, of course, but not much more than that. So can I get away with 3 inches there? The other thing I could do is, we can't see it, but there's a strip of rubber inside there which makes the bump stop. There's actually a couple of pieces in there, and I could make that thicker so there's less travel before it hits the bump stops. So that might be the thing to do as well. Yeah, I'm really liking that distance there. And again, if we compare to the originals, I think it's very hard to tell. Maybe a little bit higher up. We'll see. So that's sitting at 4 inches. Of course, the radius now isn't correct, but that's too high. I think that's easily too high. I think I'll try 3.5, and I may be able to get away with not needing to make new side profiles. So that's sitting about 3.5 inches up, and yeah, I think that might be better. And I think if I increase the radius of the side pieces for the rear just fractionally, and sit the guards just fractionally higher, that's going to be about right. Yeah, I still like that close look with the 3-inch distance though. We're getting down to fiddly differences now. I think what I'll do is I'll make the second front guard, and then I can have both guards on one side of the car and see what they look like. Ideally, I would roll it outside and have a look. Head gardener's back now, so I'm off Chihuahua watching duty, so I'm going to weld up the second guard. And while I was out here, my friend the postie visited and bought me some presents. So I've got, that's for my Meccano. That's O-ring material, so I can make a drive belt for the Gramophone. Get that out of the way. Some of this stuff is from Paul Beck Vintage Supplies. I got some brass P-clips. This is for the wiring. I got a 6-way junction box, a reproduction one, but they're nice quality. They've got the right sort of screws in them and that sort of thing. That'll be for the rear of the car. And I got the junction box for the front of the car. Let's have a look. And as you can see, it's got a couple of terminal blocks in there, but I'll probably, hopefully, have room to hide connectors in there. And what I was thinking of doing is, obviously, if I have connectors in there, you want to be able to pull the things out of the box. I can 3D print from, what's it called, EDPM rubber, new grommets, so that the cables don't go through the grommets, if that makes sense. Because if you've got the cables going through the grommets, actually, no, maybe they just lift out. Yeah, they just lift out, I think. Which means you can pull out part of the loom. Oh, that's good. So this is these were from Paul Beck Vintage Supplies. I think the other box I got was from Auto Electrical Supplies, both in the UK. And these are both technically the same thing, but obviously one's a modern, it's marked Heller, but you can just see the difference between a proper sort of Bakelite type one. It's probably not actually Bakelite, it'll be a similar plastic, and the plastic one, you know, this just looks so much better if you compare the two of them. So that will sit up there. I'm sure one day I'll have a use for that. What else did we get? These are my front bump stops. These came locally. I also ordered one of those Lucas rear number plate lamps, but unfortunately they didn't have any, so they're going to let me know when those arrive. But these are proper bump stops. They're actually a Whitworth thread on there, I think, or I'm sure it said 5/8 Whitworth. It's probably BSF. So these will go in there. I could even almost put them in the middle there, but I don't think it'll matter. I think that'll be close enough to the spring. I just have to wait till I've got everything apart to be able to drill the hole. So I've got no way I can get, I don't want to drill all the way through from the top, and I can't get there with the spring in the way. But you can imagine those will be in there. And there should be about 1.25 inch clearance. So by the time those hit those bump stops, they're getting pretty close to their full travel. So that's very cool. I'm waiting for those as well. And from the local place, I also got just some different rubber extrusions. I may try this on the inside of the boot lid. It may sit down a little bit closer to the body, just with that. And this T-shaped stuff, yes, I was thinking will look good in there. Just basically sandwiched around, just to fill in that gap. That should work nicely. So more bits arrived. That's very good. Things like this, yes, technically you could make them yourself, but I've tried making things like this before and it's so hard to get them consistent, and even now it's just expensive getting the brass. So I mean, these weren't cheap, but they'll be worth it, and that's what I'll use to bolt the wiring loom down. I don't know if they're coated in anything, I doubt it. I may dull them down a little bit first. So back to welding. The humidity has just shot up because it's been raining a little bit. But it's not cold. It's definitely not cold. Let's get the second guard done. And I did go back and again had a look at a whole lot of period photos and my CAD drawings, and yeah, no two cars are the same. Even things like the amount of clearance between the guard and the wheel is all over the place. You know, this is really close. Some of them are really high, different style guards. Some of them are just simple flat guards, as in no sides to them. Some of them are very curved, just all over the place. So I think I'll go with what looks right, and that 3 inches looks right. I think that looks good. So I may just need to add a bit more bump stop to that, just to avoid it getting too close. When you fit the strap, so this needs to be fitted with domed bolts, almost like carriage bolts. They look like big rivets. So I'll have to figure out something there, but obviously you make sure that you make the strap threaded and they tap into that. You don't go, they don't bolt through that strap, because then you've got a bolt sticking down into the top of the guard, which is where the top of the tire would hit if you ever actually end up at full travel, and you don't want that. So more welding, and luckily the rain stopped so I can open the door. What is the humidity doing? I don't know how accurate this is. 65, 68. Summertime. This is the second one welded up. You can tell I'm getting better at this because I need less tacks, although I got a bit heavy-handed here and blew a hole, so I need to weld that up. And I'm getting the fit much better because there's much less struggling to get it into place, and it's actually very satisfying when you start welding it and the weld shrink, when it pulls itself into the correct position. So you need very little hammer and dolly to get things to line up. It's a bit wobbly in the middle here, but what I'll do next is grind the tops off the welds, planish it, and then get it all nice, all the edges fitting nicely, and then TIG weld it. What I will do is make my special dolly. It's a good thing I didn't make that because I've now changed the radius. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to switch from sheet metal work, because my hands are just knackered, to a little bit of machining. And what I'll do is machine this off in steps to give me the radius I want, and then I will blend it all in with the angle grinder, and that should give me a nice circular that way and curved that way dolly that I can use to help planish all of this out. I may, yeah, that one's, there's a bit of a gap to fill there, but that should be okay. And it's come out reasonably flat, and I'll prop that up on the front tire and see what it looks like. It's a bit hard to see with everything in the way, but it's the front, that's the rear. And I
think you have to use your imagination to imagine this coming around. I'm going to keep them both the same radius, and if need be I can lift that one up half an inch. I don't think you'd notice the difference. Yeah, I'm pleased with how that's come out. Roughly milled out some steps to give me the curve, and then I'll blend that all together. I might do it on the linisher. This cut is really good, but it creates horrible tiny slivers of metal, and I usually end up with not even sure you can see them there, but metal splinters, and we're talking fractions of a millimeter, but one of those in your fingertip, it's very annoying. So I end up having to use a magnifying glass and tweezers to pull them out. So this time I tried wearing these rubber gloves just to see if that's enough to stop the little splinters. Since the sun has come out, I was able to go outside, and I use the little 40mm roll lock discs on my air die grinder to take off the tops of the welds, and I didn't need to do too much touch up on the back. And I started making a little sort of dolly I can use, but it's not quite the right shape yet. It's close, but not quite. So I dug out this T-stake I made, which I'm pretty sure I made for the Austin 7 guards, and that's working really well. That lets me planish out the welds and hammer the edges so they're all pretty tight. So when I go to TIG weld those, there's no gaps, and they're all sitting right where they're supposed to go. And the way I use this is just like that, basically. So you can see here where there's a slight mismatch in the heights. This will take all of that out. It's grassy, so I was doing it outside on the grass. So I'm going to hammer these. I'm not sure if I'll get to the welding today. I'm starting to get quite sore and tired, but yeah, I think that gives the idea of the shape, what it's going to look like. And then of course I can use the stake again when I'm finished to help planish all of this smooth once the welds are done. This T-dolly worked so well, I don't think I need this. I think this will work just fine. And I've planished the welds, I've hammered the edges to bring the edges together to make it nice to weld. They're not too wobbly. Okay, that one's got a twist in it still. One's a bit better. And remember, I'm not going for brand new here, I'm going for 1930 race car. So looking old but restored is probably the right way to put it. A few dings here and there, it's going to be fine. Yeah, the twist on that one is a bit annoying, but should be easy enough to fix. What that kind of looks like. I'm starting to get an idea of what the front of the car is going to look like anyway. And these still need trimming, of course. They're well over long. These bits, the sides don't go all the way because, of course, it comes round to a sort of curved piece here. Okay, that looks. Not sure what it'll be like from within the car. Yeah, it should be fine. Let's see if I can untwist that one a little bit. Taking a day off from metalwork today because I've done 3 days straight and my hands are knackered. So I've come to Southwards. What a surprise. Part of the appeal of this place is just the smell. Just all the old cars and oil and rubber and rust. But I thought I'd come here and get inspired again. I also went to order the paint, or get the paint for the Valicette, but they didn't have the base coat, unfortunately, so I have to wait till they get the base in, and then they can mix up the colour for me. So I came to have another look at the one here. But
was just looking at some of the motorcycles, and I think this one is similar to the one Randall's restoring, but I've only got my phone with me and I'm trying to look up what motorcycle he's actually got. I know it's a Yamaha, and on one of his thumbnails it says what the bike is, but the way I see it on the phone is right underneath that label saying what the bike is, there's a the duration of the video, so I can't actually read what model it is, but it's very similar to this, I think. Looks the same. Unfortunately I can't get any closer to it, so really nice guards on this one. Of course, having just spent 3 days making guards, that's what I'm noticing. That's what I want to look at on some of the pre-war cars as well, just the guards. So, I was busy today, I guess because it's the holiday, so there are people here with kids and things. Normally I end up with the place pretty much to myself because I often come here first thing in the morning. This one I always find super interesting. So this is one of the Austin 7 engined Rough Superior motorcycles. So it's a standard Austin 7 engine. I think it's bored out, so it's a little bit bigger than 750cc, and it's got the 3-speed gearbox. And interestingly, it's a 3-wheeler, and I don't mean because of the sidecar. I guess the sidecar makes it a 4-wheeler, but it's dual wheels at the back. I'm sure if you can see. I think there's a special bevel drive that goes into the middle between the 2 wheels to drive it. But that's why it's so wide at the back. But, special radiators, so there's 2 radiators on it. According to the information, it's there if you want to read it. There's only 8 of these left in the world, so super rare. I wonder what it's like to ride. Like, I don't know if they all came with sidecars, but if it's just a motorcycle with a really wide wheel at the back, would it be able to lean over? I don't know. Here's the poor sad little Velocette, still being dripped on by the AJS bike above it. I think this one is it's kind of a Bitzer, but I do find it useful to come and have a look at it and see some of the details, how it all goes together. Still think they're very cool bikes. On mine, I'm going to make, or attempt to make these footboards. I've got the 2 I can use as patterns. You can see, similar to mine, this one has reinforcement around there. That must be a common place they break. The leg shields, I may also try and make those as well. They're aluminium. So I think I've got 1 of those I can use as a pattern. Yeah, interesting. And this one is the Vincent Black Shadow, which I believe was kind of the super bike of the day. Really purposeful looking machine, especially with all the blacked out engine. It just looks mean. But, I really like the big speedo on it. No rev counter. Lots of little linkages and adjustments and bits and pieces on this. This next battery, of course. Looks like amyl carbs. Yeah, very cool looking bike. I think this one is similar to Randall's new project. I know it's not exactly the same, but it's a big Buick. It's 1950, 4.1 litre
V8 engine. I can't remember what year Randall's was, 1953? Very cool colour on this. See much in there. Too many reflections. It's quite a cool shape, this one. The two-door with this sloping back. They seem huge when you're used to little British cars like A30s and things. These just seem massive. One of the reasons I like coming here is to have a look and see how well these cars are put together. This is an Alfa Romeo that was restored here, and just looking at it I can see the little dents in the guard there, and it might not show up so well on the camera, but if you actually look at the edges of the guards where they've been rolled over, you can see they're not perfect. There's like a wobble in it up along there, but taken as a whole, you know, if you step back and look at this car, it looks like a beautifully finished car. You know, kind of how they should look. I don't know if you can notice it. Like I say, I'm being particularly picky about things at the moment because I'm in the middle of making my own. But I mean, I can see it really obviously. Maybe it's more difficult if you're not nerding out about mudguards at the moment. But it's good. It helps me be comfortable with what I'm doing and that it's going to be good enough and look right. That's the main thing. This is the Riley Merlin that they have here. So again, I'm looking at some of the details, like the edges of the guard and how there are imperfections. You know, nothing's perfect. So there's slight wobbles in them. I can see a seam along there. I'm guessing where maybe those two panels are welded together. And you can see it on there as well. But again, step back and look at it as a whole, and it looks like, you know, this is how they're supposed to look. Back home, a few too many people at Southwoods for me, especially kids running around and yelling all the time, trying to keep away from them. This is the paint I got. It's the colour. I want the kill rust paint. So this is the enamel I've been using on the frame for the Valicette, and all of those parts should be dry now. So I could probably actually start assembling that subframe. And they didn't have the base colour that I need to mix up. So some of that paint comes in rattle cans, but not all of the colours. So this is the gloss black rattle can, and this is the range of colours they do. They seem to have changed them because the catalogue is a little bit different now, or the colours are in a different order. But I've gone with this Colour Steel Titania colour for the body and the guards of the Valicette. It's pretty close to what it was originally. And the lady said that this paint would be compatible, and I should have actually looked at the can and not just taken her word for it. This is a lacquer. I thought, let's try spraying it on a piece of the bike. This goes up inside the body, so you won't see this. And I thought, well, let's try it, because I'd already painted that with the gloss black. And it's not compatible. You can see it's reacted. And this paint is awful as well, the spray can. It's one of those nozzles that splatters everywhere no matter how much you shake this up. But I did just want to see what that colour is going to look like. So I just sprayed some of it on a piece of blank steel. It's just kind of a slightly off-whitish
not quite grey. I think that will be close to what I want for the Valicette. It just needs to be a non-offensive colour. I think that's been repainted, so the colour of those shocks isn't quite right. Like I say, it's not going to be a 100% accurate bike anyway, so whatever's close. Yeah, I think that'll be all right. So they've ordered the base coat for me and then they tint it. So even if I change my mind, you know, do I want to go for a slightly more silvery colour? But there isn't really one. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's kind of the closest. In the UK, I believe you can just actually order the right paint, but it's not quite so easy here. So yeah, that's annoying that reacted like that, so I'll have to clean off that side and repaint that. This is the reinforcement, like I pointed out on that bike at Southwards, but I'm going to put mine inside, not outside, so you don't see it. So I'll let that dry. And I'm taking a break today. My hands are really sore. I guess I did pretty much full-on 3 days metalworking, and yeah, it's a bit painful. I may end up raising the guards at the back a little bit because I was taking photos under the guards off the cars at Southwards that have they're basically carriage bolts to join the guards onto the frame. Do I have one as an example? These. So domed head with a square sort of shoulder underneath it, and the way they all seem to work is they go through into the guard stay and there's a nut, which makes sense because you can't turn the head of the bolt. You need that to drop down into a square hole, and that locks it in place, and then you can do the nut up. So the way some of them were done, a little scrap of paper, is the guard stay was a tube, and it was welded to a little flat base like that, and the guard kind of goes on here and the bolts come through here. So this little flat must have the square, and then you've got the thread and the nut goes on the inside. So something like that. I'll probably have to use metric, which I hate, but I don't think I can easily get BSF carriage type bolts here. But at the front, so what that means is you've got the thickness of that bar, plus you need enough for the nut. So here there's more than enough room at the front because it's not going to come close to the tyre. There's no way the tyre can hit the top of the guard. At the rear, again, I might need to lift it a little bit higher to allow for that probably extra ½ inch, because you don't want threads poking through there and have the tyre hit them. It's just going to rip it to bits. So yeah, I'm going to finish off the front guards first and then we'll look at the rears. So in the interests of taking it easier today, just to let my hands recover a bit, I've been messing around with my little Meccano gramophone again, and I think I mentioned that the drive belts that I ordered the other day turned up. It's just round rubber material, and I just make my own belts you just cut the ends very square and you just super glue the ends together. Super glue and a little bit of kicker works perfectly, and you can make your own sort of rubber drive belts. And initially I thought I'm going to need some sort of tensioner on this belt, so I made this little thing up. This is an arm and just a free spinning idler wheel, and a very weak spring. You don't need much springing on there at all, and that worked. But it's noisy. There's just another source of noise there because there aren't any bearings or anything in this, so it's just another mechanical thing rattling around. So I thought, well, let's just make a drive belt that's the right sort of length and attach it. I've played with different pulleys there. These Meccano pulleys are completely wonky. They're all over the place. So I actually found instead of using a pulley, it was better to use one of these flanged wheels just as a sort of driving wheel, and that works really reasonably well. My little motor isn't really torquey enough. And I think what I'll do is I may look at getting a bigger motor. This is the right sort of speed. This is 830 RPM motor, and I've got the little speed controller so I can fine tune it. This belt seems to be working perfectly well. I don't know if it'll stretch eventually and slip, so I may look at making a little mechanism in here where I can adjust the motor tension, maybe on a little screw adjustment, so you can fine tune that belt setting. The other thing with these is they're really not kidding when they say that you can only get a play or two out of each needle. They get blunt so quickly, and the sound quality just drops enormously when it does. But we turn this thing on, and let's see. It helps to. We'll turn it off and put the record on. So it works reasonably well. Given I know I can now get it to work, I'm going to remove all this idler stuff. It's just unnecessary. And I need to start thinking about making the actual horn part. That will have to sit on top of this tube so that the sound comes out of it. I'm really interested to see if the horn improves the bass, because it sounds very tinny at the moment, very treble sounding. So let's see what's on the other side. But basically that's it. I'm quite pleased how it's working. This whiskey is purely medicinal as well. Been going through my stack of 78s, pulling out the actual broken ones and a few 33s. But yeah, most of them are really pretty crappy. But there's some really interesting things in there. A few things that are probably not considered appropriate these days, like never tango with an Eskimo. There's also another one called Sugar Bush, which is kind of strange. But I did find this one, which is really interesting. And I am going to need to make the motor mount adjustable so you can change the tension, because after playing, it's probably about 150 records, the belt is stretching a little bit, so it's starting to slip. But see if this one's recognizable. I think that's probably the best one out of the lot. But this stack here is all the ones that seem to play fairly well or are fairly interesting. So these all need a really good clean. They're just absolutely filthy. Some of them in the other stack are literally so filthy they won't play. The motor doesn't have enough torque, and it just stalls because they're absolutely filthy. But yeah, I'm pleased with how this is coming out. I am going to see if I can get a bigger motor. I think that'll help.